long-term pollution prevention from sources like underground storage tanks, solid waste, agriculture, and commercial and household hazardous waste. Because of this act, we've had great success in stopping contamination of our groundwater. Now, after 21 years, it's time for us to focus our efforts on improving the quality of our surface water, and that's why we're here today. It's time to implement a long-term, comprehensive approach that brings people to the table to identify problems, target resources, and clean up Iowa's waters, watershed by watershed, across the state of Iowa. The bill is based on a year and a half of work of the Watershed Quality Planning Task Force. Members on this task force include agriculturalists, environmentalists, state and local officials, and many other experts. To talk about the basic concepts of the bill, I will in a minute introduce Deb Ryan, who is co-chair along with Tom Haddon. Tom Haddon couldn't be here today because he's on jury duty, actually. There are several other members of the task force, and I'll have Deb handle that, but I want to take a moment just to recognize that there were 3 subcommittees that did a lot of work on the task force recommendations, and we may ask them to answer some questions from the press a little bit later, but one is Rick Robinson from the Iowa Farm Bureau. I'll just raise your hand. Thank you, Rick. Roger Wolf from the Iowa Soybean Association. Roger's over there. And Bill Eng from the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. They led the discussion on the subcommittees and were very helpful in bringing the ideas together and completing the report. There's a number of senators that are here today that have been involved in the process and will be involved in the process. And before we go to them, let's hear about the basic concepts of the task force recommendations from Deb Ryan. Deb Ryan's from the Conservation Districts of Iowa. She's the executive director. So Deb, are you ready to go? Great, thank you, Deb.
Good morning, and I'm extremely pleased to be here today. I've been in this business for just about over 8 years now. Been on several other water quality task forces, and we're finally seeing some motion and some movement, and I'm appreciative of all of you who are helping to move things forward. The Watershed Task Force had, as Donovan said, a whole slew of people on it that worked together to come up with a series of recommendations that we all could support and move forward on. There were 6 recommendations in that task force. The first one was the creation of a Water Resource Coordinating Council. That will be made up of all the agencies' heads that have anything to do with water quality. The idea behind that is to bring all the agencies together who should be working on water quality and talking about the different items that can help to make it successful. We're hoping that that council will be underneath the governor's charge so that it can move forward and have the support of all the agencies. The second concept was a regional watershed assessment planning and prioritization. It's really difficult to know where you're going if you don't know where you are. And we're really hoping that in the next 5 years we can take 5 of the major HUCs, that's a hydrologic unit code, basically a large watershed, to do a snapshot to see where we are in those watersheds. And then from that snapshot, we'll figure out which are the priority areas and where we ought to be working and really targeting our resources and focusing in on those areas and begin the watershed planning process in a systematic manner. From that, we'll start our community-based smaller watershed pilot projects. Now, that's not to say we're not working in watersheds now. There's an awful lot of watershed work going on out there. But there have been some barriers to getting some of the work done. We're hoping that this new pilot project will take us from the very beginning of the process, which is starting with community involvement, looking at a thorough assessment, which you can't get from the snapshot, all the way to the end where you're evaluating how you did, making sure that you've accomplished what you can accomplish, and then moving on to the next set of watersheds. And at the same time, looking at those barriers so we can overcome those things that have gotten in the way in the past. I skipped over one, which was actually our second recommendation, which was a public relations campaign. It feels like over the years there are a lot of folks that like to point fingers at somebody else who is creating the problem for water quality in this state. Everybody has a hand in that. There is not a soul that lives here that does not affect water quality, and really the public really needs to know that. We're hoping that the public campaign that we come out with will be something that is akin to a Smokey the Bear campaign, something that everybody can use. So whether they're private entities like Soybean or Farm Bureau, or the Iowa Environmental Council, or the DNR, or the Division of Soil Conservation, they can all use the same concept to sell and promote healthy water quality in this state. Another concept is a monitoring component. We already do some water monitoring in the state, but it tends to be before things are going on in watersheds and in places that state agencies have set up. We want to expand that to include more water monitoring in the watersheds that we're going to be working in. And then finally, there is a wastewater and stormwater infrastructure need. The wastewater industry has tremendous needs that have been unmet over the years. It's one of the things that we barely got into in our discussions and really needs to stay at the forefront. And those are the concepts that were in the campaign. I do want to recognize those folks in the room that worked on it, because it was a long effort. I will tell you, we didn't just have the major meetings. We had subcommittee meetings, and then we had subcommittee meetings, and subcommittee meetings on top of that. There was a heck of a lot of work that everybody did together. So if you would just raise your hand and just, Julie, we'll start with you. Just say your name and who you represent and why you're here.
Julie Smith, I'm from the League of Cities. Lynn Kenman, I was representing the Iowa Environmental Council on the committee.
I'm Roger Wolf. I'm Director of Environmental Programs at the Iowa Soybean Association.
Ted Mason, Iowa Water Pollution Control Association, Red Holder.
Rick Robinson, Iowa Farm Bureau.
Jeff Allen, Iowa Pork Producers.
Emily Becker, Iowa Rural Water Association.
And Bill Ames, Iowa Department of Natural Resources.
And we can't forget the guys behind us. They actually showed up to meetings, especially these three, Donovan and Brian and David. I should say your last names. That wasn't very official, sorry. Thanks, man. Everybody did work hard to bring this bill forward, and these are things all of us truly support, and we support all of the recommendations that have come forward. Is that all there? Thank you.
I'd also like to recognize Deb for driving through 8 inches of snow to get here today and made it all in one piece. I'd like to have Senator Johnson make a few comments if you'd like, and Shane John, and also Representative Steve Olson, who will help us in the House side work the bill through committee.
Good morning. I just want to tell everyone that this committee did work very hard. Deb talked about that. I mean, there were so many meetings. I didn't make them all, but the ones that were there were day-long affairs, and there was a lot of great discussion. As Deb said, and was said by one of the subcommittee chairs, I just want to underscore that. He said it best when he said, each of us lives in a watershed. And we have really moved in the direction in this state when it comes to water quality management, is to get people to think in terms of the watershed and how we each have an impact on that watershed. And I think that this is a great addition to the program that we already have, like the Watershed Equipment Review Board, projects like Iowa Water, and Project Aware. I think I'm the first legislator, not the only one to ever participate in that river cleanup, and I hope to do that again this year as we go to Northeast Iowa if I have time. It's just an addition to everything that we're doing, but this brings it all together in a new way, and I'm just hoping that we continue to work together, because that's the way things work best in Iowa, is when we do things together. Thank you.